So what is a time series data? A time series is any series. A time series is any series data that varies over the time. As I have given you in the start, I have discussed with you in the start that a time series data is data that is collected over a regular interval of time. For example, the GDP of Pakistan, you can look, you can, when you collect the data set on the GDP of Pakistan, you can see that its frequency is annual. It means it is collected at a regular interval of 1 year. You will collect this year, you will collect 2000 GDP, then 2001, then 2002, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So this is a time series data because the data set on GDP is collected over a regular interval of time, yeah, over a time. Price of stock market, आपके revenues, inflation rate, investment, government expenditure, exports, imports, public debt, uh, domestic debt, आपका interest rate, all these are the time series data. But the data is time series, but frequency can be varied regarding the various time series. So among these variables, some of the data set on some of these variables are collected over a monthly, over a quarterly, with the quarterly frequency. Quarterly means data will be collected at each quarter. Monthly means that data will be collected at monthly basis. And there are some variables on which the data can be collected on the daily basis, on daily basis, or on the weekly basis, or on the, for example, you want to make an analysis regarding the exchange rate impact on the export, exchange rate impact on the your trade. You can see it is difficult for the researchers to have data set on daily basis on the trade side, but the data on the exchange rate is available on the daily basis. एक्सचेंज रेट रोज का रोज आपके पास डेटा अवेलेबल है, लेकिन आप एक्सपोर्ट इम्पोर्ट और ट्रेड बैलेंस के ऊपर देखोगे तो आपके पास डेली बेसिस के ऊपर डेटा सेट अवेलेबल नहीं है. यू हैव द annual data set. So it is very difficult in that situation that you will use the, on one side you will use the month daily data, on the other hand you will use the annual data. So that's why because in Pakistan economy we have a data set. We have data set on most of the time series. We have a data set on the annual frequency. There is few time series on which we have a data set on the quarterly basis, and all these are the series that are related to the monetary side, monetary policy. For example, इन्फ्लेशन रेट है, आपका एक्सचेंज रेट है, आपका स्टॉक प्राइसेस हैं, इसके ऊपर यू हैव द डेटा सेट ऑन द डेली बेसिस. और कुछ वेरिएबल आपके ऐसे हैं जैसे मनी सप्लाई है, आपकी जीडीपी है. जीडीपी के ऊपर भी एक स्टडी हुई है, क्लास फेलो है मेरे जिन्होंने जीडीपी जो है उसको क्वार्टरली कंस्ट्रक्ट किया है. द पर्सन इज एडिशनल डायरेक्टर इन स्टेट बैंक ऑफ पाकिस्तान. तो और ये मैं आपको बता दूं कि जितनी फ्रीक्वेंसी डेटा सेट की ज़्यादा होगी उतना ही आपका जो एनालिसिस बेहतर होगी. जितना आपका डेटा सेट ज़्यादा होगा, लेट्स सी अगर आप 10 साल का 15 साल का डेटा लेते हो एनुअली, अगर वही डेटा क्वार्टरली अवेलेबल हो तो वो 60 ऑब्जर्वेशन हो जाएंगे, एनुअली वो 15 ऑब्जर्वेशन. अगर उसको मंथली बेसिस के ऊपर लोगे तो आप देखो तो वो 15 345 450 ऑब्जर्वेशन हो जाएंगे अगर डेली बेसिस के ऊपर लोगे. मंथली बेसिस के ऊपर लोगे तो 114 15 30 और 15 और 180 अगर मंथली बेसिस पे लोगे तो 180 ऑब्जर्वेशन हो जाएंगे आपके पास। तो जितना डेटा सेट आपके पास ज़्यादा होगा उतनी ही आपकी एनालिसिस जो है उतना ही आपके रिजल्ट जो है वो, इसलिए कहते हैं आपको सैंपल साइज बड़ा होना चाहिए टू गेट द एफिशिएंट। सो द मंथली टूरिस्ट arrival from Korea to Pakistan, from the rest of the world to Pakistan. This is the, in this you can see that your frequency is monthly here. The price of stock market in this, you can say that your frequency is daily. GDP of Pakistan in this, the frequency is annually because that is collected at annual basis. In the second, the stock prices are examined on the daily basis, and monthly tourist being tourists, arrival of tourists are calculated are examined on the monthly basis. So, because of widespread availability of the time series database, most empirical studies use the time series data. For the time series econometric analysis, it is necessary to investigate the stationarity property or the time series property of the variable, because the time series data is used at the widespread because of the widespread availability of the time series data base for the empirical studies, are the time series data are used in most often in the economic analysis. So that's why before the use of the time series data, it is important that it is mandatory to analyze the time series property of the data set. Time series property means to examine whether the time series is stationary or non-stationary. So these are the various concepts that are we study uh, uh, in these chapters, and these are the stochastic process. These are the stationary process, non-stationary process, integrated variables, random walk model, unit root test, and the cointegration test. These are the various concepts that will be used there, that will be discussed, and that will be useful uh, for the for performing the analysis. So to first look at what is the your uh, random walk phenomena. What is the so what is the stochastic process? What is a random or stochastic process? So a random or stochastic process is a collection of random variable ordered in time. Ordered in time means जिसको time के हिसाब से दिया गया, जैसे हम कह रहे हैं 2000 से 2050, तो 2000 में रैंडम वेरिएबल की वैल्यू 2001 में, 2002 में, 2003 में, 2004, 5, 6. So you have ordered the random or stochastic process is a collection of a random variable, collection of random variable उस वेरिएबल के ऊपर जो हम डाटा कलेक्ट कर रहे हो, the collection of a random variable ordered in a time. For examples, there are two type of variables, random variables. One, if we it is a continuous variable भी हो सकता है, और it is a discrete variable भी हो सकता है. So if we denote y as a random variable, we denote y as a random variable. So this random variable may be continuous or it may be the discrete. If it is a continuous, so we denote it as a y, और इसको ब्रैकेट के अंदर अगर हम इसको लिखें तो आप इसको इसको कैसे लिख सकते हैं? So let's say कि ये आपने ब्रैकेट डाली, लेट्स से ये आपने, इससे ब्रैकेट तो नहीं आएगी, आपने y डाला है और साथ इसके ब्रैकेट के अंदर आप यहाँ पर ब्रैकेट डालें, ब्रैकेट के अंदर आप यहाँ पर ब्रैकेट और ब्रैकेट के अंदर स्मॉल टी डाल दें, ठीक है जी। तो देन इट इज कंसिडर्ड एज द कंटिन्यूस वेरिएबल्स। अगर y और ब्रैकेट डाल के सबस्क्रिप्ट के अंदर ब्रैकेट डाल के आप स्मॉल टी डाल देंगे तो दैट इज कंसिडर्ड एज द कंटिन्यूस वेरिएबल्स। और अगर आप समझते हैं कि y जो है रैंडम वेरिएबल है लेकिन ये डिस्क्रीट वेरिएबल है, तो आप सिंपल इसको y और सबस्क्रिप्ट के अंदर t लिख दें। मतलब जैसे यहाँ पर मैं t डाल दूँ, लेकिन ये जो है इट विल बी इन योर सबस्क्रिप्ट रादर देन ये सबस्क्रिप्ट के अंदर जो है इसको आपने लिखना है, ठीक है जी। तो ये क्या है, डेट शो डेट इट इज ए रैंडम वेरिएबल बट इट इज ए डिस्क्रीट रैंडम। और आप देखोगे इकोनॉमिक्स के जितने भी वेरिएबल हैं, that will the discrete variable, because it not take the value at the continuous basis. You can look at the prices change but not continuously. There is a gap between change in prices. These variable will take jump. Price petrol increase from 75 to 100. It is not increased from 75 to 17.1 paisa, 17.2 paisa, 75.3 paisa. It is not increasing in this manner. It has increased from, it has made a jump from uh, 75 to 1. On the other hand, you can see many other, but what is the continuous variable? Speed is your continuous variable. So you can look at the speedometer. It will touch every point on the dial. So it will take your height, that is a continuous variable. Your weight is a continuous variable. So you are one or example that is called as the electrocardic cardiogram. Electrocardiogram, say that is called as the ECG. ECE for electro, C for cardiac और G for gram. Electrocardiogram में ECG. तो आप देखेंगे ECG भी जो आपकी कंटिन्यूस आपकी होती है। तो दिस इज द random variables. It is maybe the your discrete variable, or it may be continuous, but you can look at the economic series are uh, collected. The most economic data are collected at a discrete point in time, not at a continuous time. Discrete point in time, mean it take a gap, take a jump. For our purpose, we will use the notions YT for GDP. Jैसे I have written it, just show that it is a YT, it is a GDP, and it is a discrete variable. It means T represents this T represents your time period. For examples, you have a time series. Y represent the time series data, and this data is represented for the period of 1 to 95. या for the period of the book के अंदर लिखा हुआ है. It is a quarterly data, and it is from quarter 1947, first quarter to 2007, 2004, fourth quarter of 2007. It means it is started from the first quarter of 1947 and it ended with the fourth quarter of 2007, and it gave us approximately 244 observations. So YT1, let's say T is equal to 1, it means that is the value of GDP in the first quarter of 1947. Y2 means the value of GDP in the second quarter of 1947. If Y is 244, it means the value of GDP in the fourth quarter of 2007. So keep in mind that each of these Y is a random variable. रैंडम वेरिएबल क्या कंसेप्ट ये सिंपल अगर आप इसको देखें कि रैंडम वेरिएबल क्या है A random variable is a set of variables. A random variable is a set of possible value from a random experiment. A random variable is a set of possible values from a random experiment. I will try to explain it with an examples. For example, in what sense we can regard GDP as a stochastic process, GDP as a random variable. How can we explain it? You can know that GDP can, let's say we say that GDP for the period of 2000 or this year, the GDP for the 2019, look at. So the GDP of 2019 can take any values, and it means the value of GDP are depending upon several factors. There are many economic factors, there are many political factors, there are many other factors. For example, there is timely weather is our climate is very good, weather is very good. There are timely rains, and as a result of all this, you are uh, you are you have a bumper crops, and as a result, your agriculture sector have improved a lot, or give a huge production level. And overall, when you calculate the GDP, it comes from the three sources, that is the GDP, that is the manufacturing, that is the services sectors. It means there are the GDP when your GDP from the agriculture, when your production from agriculture is a huge one, or have improved as compared to the previous year. So GDP will improve. But if look at the other, uh, along with this timely rains, you can see that politically economy is stable one. Political environment is very good. There is no crisis. There is no agitation. There is no other problems. Everything is going right. That also help us in improving the GDP. Economic factors. There is no war. There is no flood. There is no. These are the factors that are also helping. So it means your GDP may be any numbers. Your GDP may be, there are many possible values that your GDP can take at the 30th June when you calculate it. But actually, you have the only one value. So look at the example that is given in your book. We regard GDP as a stochastic or random variable. Consider, for instance, the GDP of rupees, the GDP of dollars 3,759 or 3,760 billion for the quarter 1971, 1970 quarter वन, कहते 1970 क्वार्टर वन की ये जीडीपी की वैल्यू आई। जैसे मैंने अभी आपसे कहा है, इस वक्त आपकी जो जीडीपी की वैल्यू है, लेट्स से इस वक्त आपकी जीडीपी जो 2019 की आपकी जीडीपी की वैल्यू तकरीबन समझ लें कि 42,000 बिलियन के करीब आपकी वैल्यू आई है जीडीपी। ये 42,000 से ये 48,000, क्योंकि लास्ट टाइम 44,000 कुछ थी, तो 44,000 से कम हुई है, तो आपका ग्रोथ रेट जो है वो जीडीपी का नेगेटिव चले गया। अब ये क्यों नेगेटिव हुई है? दैट इज द मेजर फैक्टर बिहाइंड दिस नेगेटिव इज कोरोना। अगर कोरोना ना आता अगर इकोनॉमी आपकी क्लोज ना होती, अगर आपकी इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज क्लोज ना होती, economic activity remain continuous, everything is going continuous, businesses are going well, there's no shutdown, there is no lockdowns, the result will be different, uh, as you have. Possible at that time, your GDP at the end of, at the 30th June of 2019-20, your GDP is, या was, आप कह लें कि जी 50,000 billion, and the previous year is, 44,000 billion, or at this year it is, 50,000 billions. So you will get a positive growth of the GDP rate, but your GDP can take different values. So basically, two things is, one is the stochastic process. Stochastic process means the random variable can take any possible values. There are many possible values that a variable can take. और दूसरा concept है particular realization. Particular realization means that is specific, that the specific values that the random variable will take. Let's say जैसे मैंने कहा कि जी जीडीपी की आपकी 2019 की का जो आपका रैंडम वेरिएबल है जीडीपी, वो मुख्तलिफ पॉसिबल वैल्यूज उसकी हो सकती थी, लेकिन एक्चुअल जो उसने वैल्यू ली है वो क्या है जी, 42,500, लेट से 42,500 बिलियन रुपी जो है वो आपकी जीडीपी है। तो ये स्पेसिफिक वैल्यू दैट इज कॉल्ड एज द पर्टिकुलर रियलाइजेशन, और जो मुख्तलिफ वैल्यू जीडीपी की हो सकती थी दैट इज कॉल्ड द स्टोकास्टिक प्रोसेस। So in the theory, the GDP figure for the first quarter of 1970 could have been any number, depending on the economic and political climates then prevailing. So the figure of $3,760 is a particular realization of all such possibilities, because among all such possibilities, this is the actual that has been happened. This is the value that has been happened, that can be take place. So the value that actually take place, that is called the particular realization, and the variable uh, uh, that can take the different possible values, that is called the stochastic process. So the distinction between the stochastic process and its realization, यानी stochastic process और इसकी realization में क्या difference है, is akin to the distinction between population and sample. जिस तरह क्रॉस सेक्शन डेटा के अंदर एक population होती है और एक sample होता है. I have given the example that Lahore is having a population of 10,000, population of 10 crore, and it is very difficult for us to collect the data set on a set of variables from this population of 10 crore. We pick a sample of 1,000 from that population. Sample means we collect data on the set of variables from these 10,000 people. That is the sample that we have picked from the population. So जिस तरह आपकी population है, इस तरह आपका random variable can take different possible values. यानी for this year, the GDP, your GDP may be of 50,000, 55,000, 51,000, 40,000, 51,000, 52,000, 53,000. It may be any number. So all these numbers is the population, like population, and particular realization is the number that will actually take place. So for this year, you have a possible numbers, but the actual number is that is 42,500 billions that we are actual GDP for this year. So this 42,500 is a particular realization, and all the set of all possible values that that random variable can take, that is your stochastic process. So what is the stationary process? A stationary process, a type of stochastic process that has received a great attention and scrutiny by time series analysts, is so-called so-called the stationary stochastic process. A stochastic process is said to be a stochastic process in time series. A stochastic process is said to be stationary if its mean and variance are constant over the time. And a stochastic process is said to be stationary if its mean, its variance are constant over time, and the value of the covariance between the two time periods